friends. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. This is where we take a fresh look at ourselves and the world around us. We take a new look, a fresh look, a second look, however you want to describe it. But Take Two is really directed by you. And hopefully by this brief hour, if we can spend with one another, we'll walk away a little bit changed, a little bit closer to God, a little bit better understanding of what's going on in the world. Maybe we can solve some of the world's problems. Who knows? What do you think, Jer?
Well, that would be nice. There are plenty of them that warrant being solved. Today we're going to talk about something that, and you know what's interesting, Debbie, the Holy Spirit. We talk about how the Holy Spirit works often on this show and how topics get scheduled and so forth. I wasn't even thinking that it was Halloween.
It was Halloween. Come on.
No, I wasn't. When I put this topic on the calendar, it didn't even cross my mind.
That we're talking about death?
Yeah, today we're talking about preparing for death. Debbie, this is something, hey, look, no one's getting out alive, right?
True.
And there are situations where people prepare very well and in advance and thoroughly and have everything in order. But then sometimes unexpected things happen. And that's what happened with my sister. And it was a real scramble, to get things, paperwork and legal stuff and all of that. So we just want to have a conversation with our listeners and find out from you who are tuned in, have you taken some steps to kind of put the pieces in place? Not that you want to die anytime soon, but just to make sure that things go smoothly and that your family is not left, strapped with a lot of, financial bills or just trying to figure things out on your behalf. So I think it's an important conversation.
Yeah, even unexpected costs, Jerry, because after, our loved one dies and if there's certain things that, need to be purchased, sometimes it's even at a higher cost. And so that can always create some issues as well. So we're asking the question today, have you prepared for your death? So you heard Jerry say this was not purposely put on Halloween Day that we're talking about this, but maybe it is appropriate that we are in preparation because, like Jerry said, we're not going to get out of here alive. So we really should prepare so that our loved ones maybe can be able to go through the grieving process a lot easier when they don't have all these unexpected situations that arise when we pass away. And that's what you were referring to, Jerry. What happened with your sister? Your sister passed earlier this year. And can you share any of the details of what unexpected things popped up that you weren't even thinking of?
Well, let me put the phone number out there again first and then kind of contrast and compare my sister and my mother in their situations because I've seen both ends of the spectrum here. But as you're listening right now, 1-800-585-9396, maybe you had to go through a situation where a loved one passed away and you were like going, wow, where's the paper? Where's the file? Did they make funeral arrangements? Did they make burial arrangements? All of these things. Maybe you had that experience that come up in your life. Instead of, talking about preparing for your own death, we can talk about that too, but maybe you've had that experience. 1-800-585-9396. My mother, bless her heart, God rest her soul, Debbie, she was the ultimate preparer.
Aww.
She was prepared for her death years, probably 10, 15 years in advance. She had the burial plot, picked out and paid for. She wanted to be near her family, I think near one of her cousins or something. And I think everything was paid for and all the arrangements in place. I mean, she was absolutely meticulous, and then she just lived almost forever after that. Whereas, yeah, you mentioned my sister. Obviously, it was very sudden. It was 3 months from diagnosis to death with her cancer. And that really left not only her husband, my brother-in-law, but me. I was there. I stayed a couple months, and it was a scramble. Yeah, it was expensive because none of this had been planned ahead of time. Like you said, you can save money by planning a lot of this stuff in advance. But just the meetings, going to the mortuary and arranging, and they weren't practicing. She wasn't going to church, so we had to find a parish, and we did, thank God. So there were just so many things that come up. That, again, it's not a real fun topic to talk about, Debbie, but it is one that I think is so vitally important because, as the Bible says, we do not know the day nor the hour.
Right.
So.
My dad died in 2010, but he had cancer, and so he knew his life was going to end, within probably like a year or two. So he planned with my mom. We all planned, actually, and that's when we all bought our crypts at the at the mausoleum. My mom and dad, Marty and I, and my sister Marianne, my friends all bought crypts. It was hilarious. We had this actual kind of a dinner party at our house, and we were all deciding, what was going to happen. And it's really fascinating, though, Jerry, because it wasn't a morbid thing, but Catholic Cemeteries does a great job at having pre-planning guides, and they give you all sorts of things that you can use to be able to plan out everything and the costs, and just to help your loved ones along. And then also different dioceses have wonderful and on their usually in their pro-life departments great advanced medical directives and different information that you can acquire from the diocesan website, and you can pull all that together, and you can have a nice file where you don't have to be scrambling and saying, where's the file? Everything will be in there, and all the plans and everything will be done. And I think, Jerry, that really does help a person when they are really just stunned and shocked and going through the sadness and sorrow and the grieving of losing someone, to have that all done. So I'm really happy we did. I mean, it didn't come out of a great situation. We knew my dad was going to die, but then all of us had all of our funerals planned. So now we were like, whew, we're done. We at least know our relatives won't be scrambling. So that's what we want to ask you today. How do you feel about this? What's your experience about it? Do you think it's morbid to plan, your own, funeral, if you will? Do you think it's healthy because it's a reality? 1-800-585-9396. That's the number to get on the show. We'd really like to hear from you because you educate us. So if you don't call, then it's just Jerry and I chatting away, and you don't want to hear that for the entire hour.
Well, I've shared my experiences of this, so I don't have a whole lot more to say, but I do want to hear from you and learn from you, because I'll be honest with you, I have not done very much, if any of this. I have almost no plans in place, but believe me, events of the last year have really opened my eyes to this. So share your take on this. Have you prepared for your death, or did you go through maybe the loss of somebody else who didn't have their stuff in order and it created chaos for you? Let us know.
This is Dr. Greg Popchak.
And Lisa Popchak.
This is Chris Stefanik, host of Real Life Catholic.
This is Archbishop Samuel Aquila from the Archdiocese of Denver. And thank you for listening to EWTN Radio.
What's stopping you from becoming a Catholic?
Why can't women become priests?
I don't understand why I have to earn salvation.
How is it possible that God created everything?
Why do I need to confess my sins to a priest?
Why is the Catholic Church so unwilling to
The Catholic Church is too rich.
Catholics worship Mary and are committed.
As far as I'm concerned, all religions are equal.
You are called to communion with Dr. David Anders. Today, 2 p.m. Eastern, on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Stay up to date on the latest EWTN TV and radio shows, books, art, CDs, and DVDs from Religious Catalog when you sign up for Wings, our weekly e-newsletter. Get Wings today at EWTN.com.
Christ is the answer, with Father John Riccardo.
John, chapter 8, verse 51. Jesus is in a discussion with some of the leaders of the Jews. They're talking about Abraham. Abraham lived 1,500 years before the time of Jesus. So in the course of the discussion, Jesus says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he will never see death." He says that often in the Gospels. "He who keeps my word or believes in me will never die." To which the Jews say, "Now we know you have a demon." And they say, "Abraham died, as did the prophets. All the patriarchs, the great men and women of the history of Israel. All these people died, and you say, if anyone keeps my word, he will never taste death? Are you greater than our father Abraham, who died? And the prophets who died?" And Jesus says, "Your father Abraham rejoiced that he was to see my day. He saw it and was glad." To which the Jews say, "You are not yet 50 years old, and you've seen Abraham?" And Jesus answers, "Truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am."
Okay, we're talking today on Take Two about have you prepared for your death and all of the elements that go along with that, the funeral arrangements, the burial, even some of the, advanced medical directives or prior to death. I mean, all sorts of things like that. There's all these elements, and usually it's very overwhelming for the loved ones that are left behind. So that's why we are tackling this difficult subject. But you are taking it on in grand style, because I think every phone line is full. And Mark was first up in Alvin, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio Network. Hi, Mark. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Oh, thanks for taking my call.
Sure thing, Mark.
I just wanted to affirm what y'all are talking about. I'm 63 years old, and I've just started thinking about getting my funeral arrangements planned and everything. I don't think I'm going to die tomorrow, but I think I'm going to die within the next 25 or 30 years, and I think people need to take care of their business, and a lot of people don't.
Well, it's a great point, Mark.
About it.
Yeah.
There's nothing morbid about it.
No, I agree.
Cool. Thank you.
I agree. And it is taking care of business. I think, Mark and Debbie, it is, in a sense, we have a responsibility almost, an obligation. And again, sometimes people don't get around to it because, Mark, you're at about that age. I'm a little bit younger than you, but like I said at the start of the show, I'm starting to see family and friends who are dying or getting sick and so forth, and it's kind of opening my eyes to that. And Debbie, you already shared that you have really made a lot of arrangements already.
Yeah, I mean, we have, Mark. And here's the thing. We actually found it very healing. It was comforting. I mean, we even got down to the music we wanted played at our funeral arrangements. By the way, it's all Matt Maher music, just so you'll know. But we giggled, we chuckled, because we know it's a reality. And, there was such a peace about it, and we didn't feel like it was morbid. But when I told other folks, they were like, "Oh, that's incredibly sick. Like, why would you do that? Why would you?" And I'm like, "Well, why wouldn't we?" So I'm happy that you affirmed that, Mark. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Mark, for the call. Great way to get started here on the phone calls. Take two with Jerry and Debbie today, talking about preparing for death. Your own, or again, maybe you lost a loved one and nothing was in order, and like Debbie said, the importance of advanced medical directives and things like that. So please join us here on the program at 800-585-9396. We're going to go to Piedmont, South Dakota, Real Presence Radio. Pamela. Hi, Pamela. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi there. Thank you for having this talk. Most people wouldn't think of that.
Well, we come up with some.
Some of us are a little different.
we come up with some strange ones.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about this?
A dear, what I consider a spiritual mother, died several years ago, and when she had "Jesus, Remember Me When You Come Into Your Kingdom," which is a Lenten song that we sing, it's almost a chant. I'm like, wow, that is so beautiful. I want that for my funeral. And so after that, every time I went to a funeral, I started looking at things that I loved. And before you know it, I had it all mapped out. And then my mother died last spring. And it was really helpful for her funeral because it was very unexpected. And we used so much of what I wanted in my funeral.
Oh, how beautiful.
And one thing I wanted to say through all that process, someone led me to a site that talked about the responsibilities as Catholics. When we bury our loved one, we are supposed to be present at the actual, when the coffin goes into the grave. And our culture really tries to prevent us from being there. So I've got that note on there, too, that I want my family, at least the immediate family, are supposed to be there while that coffin goes in the grave. And we didn't know that, but when my son had died, we were there because we didn't want to leave. And I'm so glad I was.
Yeah. There's a lot of things on USCCB about preparing for funerals and stuff like that. So you could always go on to that site as well, and you can get some more information on that. That's actually interesting, Jerry. Have you ever heard that before, what Pamela's saying?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was going to mention that the corporal works of mercy include burying the dead. They are feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, shelter the homeless, visit the sick, visit the prisoners, give alms to the poor, and bury the dead. And it's because of our reverence for the body, and we want to treat the body in a sacred manner because, it's going to be resurrected on the last day. And, of course, that doesn't mean if the body's not fully intact, Jesus, won't make it so at the end of time. But we do want to have that great reverence and respect for the body. So, yeah, Pamela, anything else? I'm glad you shared what you did. Any last thoughts before we let you go?
I'm looking at 3 typed pages of what I want. From the music, I have everything laid out, the violin, and if there's bagpipes. I've got every reading. I've got the funeral handout, beautiful things that I've picked up along the way of things that I would like to have in mine. I've got a couple, like TrappisCaskets.com. They make, and so does Marion Caskets. They both make caskets that are, well, they're not always really fancy, but sometimes I think that's ashes to ashes kind of thing. But I'm an organizer at heart anyway. So for me, maybe I'm a control freak, but I love doing it. I get to put in my favorite verse to put on the handout, just all these things, asking for Gregorian masses for me, those 30 masses, things like that. It's just, and I have a folder, and I let everybody in my family know, my kids and my husband. I'm still pretty young, but I think it's a wonderful idea. And honestly, it's probably ever since my son died, I've had one foot in heaven. I can't wait. Someone was talking last hour on Local about Fatima and how Mary had said that, the final battle is between Satan, and he's attacking marriage and family. And she mentioned, I do think we're in the end times. And I'm like, let it come today. I would be so excited.
Yeah. Well, we're sorry about the loss of your son, Pamela. And if we can have his first name, Debbie keeps a prayer book. We'd love to add his name to that.
His name is Caleb, and he is a shining star in heaven because he died at 10 months. So I know where he is. It's wonderful.
That is a great consolation and a great gift.
Yes.
Well, we will pray for Caleb and for you and all of your family, Pamela. Thank you so much.
Could you also put my parents on? Because both my parents have died.
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. What are their names?
Paul and Francis.
Paul and Francis. Got it. Absolutely.
Thanks, Pamela.
Thank you, Pamela.
And
yes.
One of the things she mentioned really, I think, is food for thought as well, Debbie, and that is, sometimes when people approach weddings, they can put tens and tens of thousands of dollars into the wedding. And when, maybe something a little bit simpler would save a lot of money and still be elegant and beautiful and joyful and all of that. And it's the same with burials, really, quite frankly. When my brother-in-law and I were going around looking at, the caskets and this and that and the boxes they have to put in first and all this stuff. And I mean, we're looking at the dollar signs just mounting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And whereas, there are those simpler options for caskets and things like that, which I think, people should put a little thought into, how much they have to spend for that, because you don't have to spend so much,
Right, that's true, and that's why the pre-planning is so essential. I just wanted to mention too, Jerry, I mentioned the usccb.org. That's the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops website, and if you just type that USCCB and type in funerals, up comes everything that the USCCB has on funeral rites and readings, just like Pamela was talking about, readings and even all sorts of things that you can do to plan. So it might be worth for folks just to at least check it out, just to see what's out there. Because I have to say this, as Catholics, we do it so right. I think the funeral Mass is so beautiful, and the way we just honor our baptism and it's amazing. It's just incredible. In fact, I know it sounds strange, Jerry, but when I was working at the parish, I think I shared this. Our pastor used to ask us to go to funerals all the time because they wanted to kind of fill the pews, and we actually enjoyed going because it was so gorgeous to watch what the Catholic Church does for the beauty of the body and the soul. It's absolutely wonderful. So Tony, you're up next, driving through Minnesota. Thank you so much for waiting, and welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Hi,
Hello.
Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Hi. If I'm sounding a little rough, I'm driving on the back road. But with my mom, almost 20 years ago, with her planning my stepdad's funeral, but she died suddenly. She's actually still paying for some of the bills. But it was so expensive.
Wow.
And she had to hurry up and get the first reading, the music, and everything. So it is pretty hard to plan it out.
So basically, Tony, you're saying when your mother passed away, not a lot of these details were lined up at that time yet.
When my stepdad passed away.
Oh, when your stepdad passed. Oh, and your mother is still paying for some of the. Wow,
my
20.
mom is still.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, see, Debbie, I think Tony's, really driving home the point of preparation and all of that. And the thing is, when do you decide to do that? Like I said, I'm 56 and have never really given it much thought until, now my sister has passed away and seeing other people get sick and ill. And so, it's not something you're probably going to do when you're 18 years old, but, you got to find that point in your life and really sit down and ponder this and pray about it.
Right, absolutely. We're sorry that was the experience, Tony. But like Jerry was saying, just the cost it's really difficult to decide, like you said, Jerry, when exactly is the right time. But maybe stories like Tony's would maybe get folks to even just check it out and be encouraged to just possibly look into it so that there wouldn't be these costs that go on for 5-10 years. That also doesn't help, I think, with the grieving process because, here you've got all these things that you still have to pay off. So it's a constant reminder.
It's a reminder that kind of drives home the grief and the memories and the loss of the loved one and so forth. Tony, we're going to certainly pray for your mom. We'll pray for the soul of your stepdad and for you and all of your family. And please be safe out there driving through Minnesota. We're glad that you joined us today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Thank you, Tony. We appreciate it. Okay, Nicole, you're up next in Delaware, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Nicole. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hello, how are you guys?
We're great.
Doing well,
how are
Nicole.
you?
Good. So in the last year, my family has buried both of my grandmothers. And we had a really great experience because they had both pre-planned. So there really wasn't a lot of, there wasn't anything for us to do. It was just a matter of, going into the home and choosing a few last-minute things. And, that was it. It was more of a struggle about 5 years ago with my grandfather. It was about $11,000 that we weren't expecting. So that was definitely a punch in the budget for that. But my real question is, I have an aunt who is in her late 50s. She was born with spina bifida, and she's had a number of health problems over the years. And she's purchased a plot in a Catholic cemetery next to my grandparents, but she won't discuss anything else. So when it comes to any type of pre-planning or how we would pay for everything or even, what would happen when she does die, she doesn't want to talk about it at all.
Have you shared with her, Nicole, about with your grandmothers that how smoothly everything went and and how it allowed all of you just to kind of just go through the grieving process without all this external stuff coming at you? Have you shared just how it was really kind of a gift that your grandmothers left to you guys? Have you shared that with your aunt?
Absolutely. It was her father that the $11,000 was spent on, and she was there she went to the funeral home and planned with my grandmother, so she knows what it's all about. But anything regarding death, she just completely shuts down and won't talk about it. And it's something that I worry about because, my parents have planned for their future. I have 3 sisters, but, we are raising families, and I certainly don't have thousands of dollars put aside to help pay for a funeral. My aunt does not make very much money, and she's not very good with her money. So I know when the time comes, it's going to be a huge financial burden for my family. And I just, she won't talk about it. She just shuts down, and it's very frustrating. Because, you don't know how to deal with it.
Well, yeah, and you said she has spina bifida, so she has, a situation happening to her on a regular basis, so she probably has a fear of death. So, yeah. What do you do in those? Yeah, what do you do in those cases, Jerry? It sounds like Nicole approached her. They've tried to open the door to conversation, and she's unwilling.
Yeah, I don't know what more you can do, Nicole, that you haven't done already. I would agree with Debbie. There's perhaps an elevated fear because of the birth defect that she apparently has lived with for many, many years, thanks be to God. But it may have, all of her life, it may have been kind of haunting her in the back of her mind, like this could cause a premature death or something like that. So any kind of talk or thought about that, could just kind of spook her right now. And so maybe just be her, awesome niece and comfort her and try and bring joy into her life. And maybe around in a roundabout way, you could maybe help, kind of set some things up for her or something. But I think you're a great, you're a wonderful niece to be thinking about her and caring for her like this.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing, too, is I would also just pray, just ask her guardian angel, ask your guardian angels, ask the saints to intercede, just to help your family out so that there isn't this burden of a big, financial crash that happens after your aunt dies. And, you just have to really just trust that God will take care of it, because otherwise, you did your part, Nicole. The rest you just got to leave up to God. So thank you so much for your call, and thank you for your story. This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. When we come back, we're going right back to the phones. Shannon's been holding for so long, so keep holding, Shannon, just a little longer. We'll be right back.
Third Millennium Media presents Debbie Georgianni.
The world tells us not to be merciful, and we as Catholic Christians are called to take a step back and look at it in a different way. We must practice mercy, especially if we want to receive mercy.
Debbie Georgianni, co-host of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio, wants to visit your parish retreat or conference. Invite Debbie Georgianni today online at thirdmillenniummedia.com.
Marriage is for better or for worse. The young and foolish never think for worse will ever come. We enter marriage thinking our spouses are going to be the balm for all our wounds. Sometimes they are. Other times, a spouse is like the diagnosing hand pushing on your arm to see exactly where it's broken. Ouch! But the goal is your healing. Divorce statistics are often misunderstood. About 50% of people who enter marriage, they don't end up divorced. 50% of marriages end up in divorce because so many people get married and divorced multiple times. God keeps trying to heal them again and again through the person they fall in love with, but when the pain comes, they take off again. When you're facing hard times and romantic phrases feel forced, try these words: I will never leave you. That's a more profound expression of love than you could have ever uttered when you were young and infatuated. And your faithfulness is also how God will heal you. This is Chris Stefanik from RealLifeCatholic.com on EWTN Radio.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
The only thing new about the heresies in the church and the schisms in the church today is it's mixed with satanic worship. We in the church have gone from enneagrams to centering prayer to solstice worship to goddesses. And you buy it as something new.
For more information on Mother Angelica, visit Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. Thank you to the show team, Rich, Matt, Jeff, everybody else. And thanks to the affiliates. Thank you. If you're an affiliate that carries this program, we really do appreciate it sincerely. 1-800-585-9396 on this All Hallows Eve. By the way, remember tomorrow, All Saints Day. Holy Day of Obligation. Day. Yeah, and then try to get to Mass on Thursday, All Souls Day, very important day as well. I promise, folks, I didn't plan it this way, but the topic today is preparing for your death. How well you've done that. Have you done that? Maybe you haven't yet, like me, gotten started on that. Or maybe you had an experience of someone you know who did die and didn't have their affairs in order, the medical advance directives or the funeral, the burial, the cemetery, the casket, all of this stuff. So share your experience at 800-585-9396. And Debbie, you mentioned we're going to get right to Shannon, but one of our longtime regular listeners, Karen in Louisiana, sent an email. Hi, Jerry. Hi, Debbie. Because you both exist, this world is a better place. I didn't pre-read this.
That's so
Thank
sweet.
you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
She says, my husband and I both have our funerals planned. He sells burial plans, pre-needs. I'm 44 and he's 41. We are in South Louisiana, and anyone can call him to set up their funeral in South Louisiana. She says what we were talking about, prices go up every year. Mm-hmm. If you set your funeral today, it locks in that price even if you die 40 years from now. You are charged the price the day you bought it. So, wow. Karen, thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks.
See? I did do the right thing for once. Okay. Shannon, okay, you got our Patience Award. It's virtual, Shannon. Like we always say, we don't know what you're going to do with it, but it's yours. We're going to ship it to Indiana virtually. Maybe we'll just ship it to Catholic Radio Indy. That's what you're listening on. Hi, Shannon. Welcome to Take Two.
All right. I am so happy to hear I am not the only one who has planned my funeral out. I'm 51. When I was about 26, I planned it all out. I had gone through the death of a little boy that I babysat for. And when that happened, I just really started thinking about my own mortality. So I started planning everything. I've got all the readings picked out, all the songs picked out. When I met my husband, he teased me, and he has been teasing me ever since, that I'm just so morbid that I have this funeral planned out.
Right.
Well, last year, it's just been over a year now, I was diagnosed with a very rare cancer. And so it was a very real possibility that I was going to die. And I was so glad that I had my funeral planned out. And he doesn't tease me anymore about that. And it was just an appropriate time for this topic, because I just came out of adoration, turned on the radio to hear what you guys were talking about, and my next CAT scan is next week, and I start getting nervous about this time, wondering if the cancer's come back, and I was just sitting in adoration, praying, Lord, if you're ready to take me, I'm ready. I don't want to go, but I'm ready, and I'm okay. I'll be all right. So, and also, the year before I was diagnosed, within that same year, my dad and my father-in-law both passed away. So we went through 2 funerals, and neither one of them had pre-planned. So just the shock of the cost and trying to plan out the funeral itself, that was so difficult. And then when I got my own diagnosis, I was like, I don't have to worry about this piece at least. I just have to worry about how do I get my daughter through this, who's only 12. And so it was hard, but I'm just excited to hear that I'm not the only crazy one who's planned my funeral out and been told that I'm morbid. And I just don't think I'm morbid because everybody dies, and we're all going to have to eventually face it. So,
Well, Shannon, you're in good company with me anyway. Jerry hasn't planned anything, so this is probably going to pressure him to plan. But Shannon, I can definitely not relate in the same degree as you are dealing with the CAT scan next week. But I'm sure you heard me say that I had cancer in 1994, thyroid cancer, and I know what that feeling is like.
Too. I didn't hear that, but I did too.
Yeah, but I know what that feeling's like when you go back every year to get that test, and your heart is just racing, and you just can't wait to get it over with. And so, would you mind telling us what day it's going to be on, the CAT scan? Because I'm going to be praying at the beginning of as soon as I wake up, I'll be praying for you, and then if you could let us know. Yeah, when is it?
Okay, it is next Tuesday, a week from today, November 7th.
November 7th.
And it's adrenal cancer. Nobody hears about it. We're 1 in a million. So,
wow.
Doctors just don't see this at all. So,
we'll be. Oh, absolutely. We'll be praying the Take Two family. And if you could just do one other little favor after you'll get probably the results rather quickly from the CAT scan. I'm presuming.
Yeah.
Could you please? Okay. Could you please drop us an email at take2, the number 2 at EWTN.com? Just let us know, because we're going to be praying and storming heaven for you, Shannon. So please know that.
Thank you so much. I sure will.
Yeah. So we're all there with you at that CAT scan, right? Because that's how we're connected.
I'll remember that.
Yeah.
Well, Shannon, I just want to say how beautiful your soul and your spirit are, because, I remember, as you may have heard, on the show or earlier on this show, I lost my sister earlier this year, and it was just a 3-month, diagnosis to death with a very, very rare form of cancer. But she had not been really active in practicing her faith, but this brought her back to the sacraments. But there was something similar in the way you're expressing your situation with her. She embraced it. She was even the one in the hospital when we had that hard talk. The doctors came in basically and gathered the whole family to let us know that they had tried everything and nothing was going to work. And everyone was fighting for words. And my sister was the one who jumped in and said, So you're gonna send me home to die? And she kind of chuckled, and not that it was funny, but she kind of took control of the situation. She was not fearful. She was not, and so I love the way you're presenting this, and I hope it's inspiring, Debbie, everyone who's listening, to not be afraid. I mean, death is, what does the church say? Our life is not ended, but it's just changed when we die, and it's changed for so much more gloriously, when we're in relationship with God. So, Shannon, you're a real inspiration to us. You are, Shannon. Yep. And here's the thing: fear is not of God, and so when you remove the whole fear aspect of it, you tend to live a more, I believe anyway, a more of an abundant life, no matter how long that is. But when you have fear that sets in, then it becomes something that you're just kind of scrambling, trying to hold on to everything you possibly can. It distorts the life that you can have. That's what I think anyway, Shannon. So you sound like you are full of freedom.
When I was in adoration, I was reading a book by Blessed John Paul when he was blessed, and was praying with him. And the meditation for today was "Be not afraid," and that was just perfect for me too, because I'm like, I can't be afraid. Nope. I start getting nervous about the same time every quarter, but I can't be afraid. And he just reminds me, be not afraid.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Great. Well, that's what we're going to pray for you as well. And then we definitely want that wonderful report coming back so we can thank God for all the prayers that we're going to be sending up to heaven for you, Shannon. So
thank you so much.
That. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you, Shannon, for sharing your heart with us and all of our listeners on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. All right, a lot of phone calls here on this discussion about preparing for death. Carol is next. Carol is listening to us in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hello, Carol. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Yes, hello. Hi, Jerry. Hi, Debbie.
Hi.
This is a very, very good show. And I was thinking about an aspect that I read about on drwild.com. Dr. Andrew Wild brought it up about how you make an inventory of your spiritual legacy that you've left in life. So a person would, not just think about death and not take a reflection on all the things that they did that added to the world. So I think that's another aspect of it, that as you're preparing in other ways, spiritually and financially, that you might want to do something that's, along those lines. What do you think?
I love it, yeah.
I love that. So take a spiritual inventory. So do you put this down is this something that is read at the person's funeral?
What is my legacy? What is my legacy? What did I do? And the things you're proud of, I suppose, and the things that you thought, I think, had some spiritual gravitas.
Mm. And is this something you'd want read at the funeral, though, or just privately for the family?
I don't know. I just think I don't know. It would be up to everybody personally, but it would be just for, as long as that's something that you would do for your. I don't think you would read it. That would be kind of like polishing the apple, but
right.
But I think that,
hey, I love it.
There, but.
One thing I like about it, Carol, is I think a lot of times, we can be, again, we've talked about fear, and when illness and death might be approaching for somebody, there could be feelings of discouragement or dejection, like, I haven't accomplished anything in my life, or, I'm being punished, or, this is the end, and it's this horrible kind of ending of my life. It's all coming to an end, but maybe to reflect back, not in a prideful, boastful way, which I know you're not implying, Carol, but in a very healthy kind of way, because Debbie, God creates all of us, as you always say, fulfill our full purpose in life. And if we can reflect back, whether it's raising kids, holding down a career, helping someone who is in need at some point. I mean, every one of us can have thousands of things that could be part of this spiritual inventory that Carol's talking about.
Spiritual legacy, yeah. Carol, I love the idea. It's kind of interesting that you're bringing this up, because my mother is in the hospital. She just got moved to a rehab place yesterday. But in one of the previous visits to the hospital, one of the nurses kind of did that with her. They actually asked her to go through her life and talk about all the things. And, she was talking about having 6 kids and being a stay-at-home mom and doing this and this. And she was going on. And the nurse finally said to her, "Boy, do you realize how much you've done?" And my mother goes, "Not really. I didn't." She goes, "You just kind of do it. When you're doing it, you're doing it." And it was interesting. And it's exactly what you're talking about, Carol. But it was very I loved hearing it, and I know my mother loved hearing it, or she liked the response that the nurse gave her. So I think I'm going to take on that suggestion, Carol. I actually like that one. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and also I applied for a scholarship for some kind of an event or something like that, and I have to put in why I should get it, and I didn't really think, and I had to take a short reflection of some things I had done in just a couple of years, and it was and I completely forgot that I did them, but that they had any merit, but and then the other big thing I think the people should do if they're not having like an accidental death, or it's possible to have people from your parish or another organization do the Divine Mercy Chaplet at the deathbed or as the person's dying. I know some parishes have groups that go and specifically do that, but I think that we're in the JP2 generation, and that's a new thing, and that it's a good thing. And St. Faustina also talked about how the evil one sends bad things at your deathbed to try to pull you away as you're leaving, and she saw things like this. And anyway, but I think it's just a good idea to think about the Divine Mercy Chaplet.
Absolutely, we couldn't agree more. Jerry, weren't you praying the chaplet a lot with Mary?
Oh, yeah, almost nonstop. Mm-hmm. And another thing, too, that I'm reminded as Carol's talking there is sometimes people would think this is inappropriate, but I don't. Have a mass said for yourself sometime while you're alive. I have done that. I have given a stipend, and I've asked a priest, please offer sacrifice of the Mass for me for the hour of my death. And so that's already kind of been taken care of. And, of course, people, when that happens, others are going to be having masses said for you and all of that. But right. I see nothing inappropriate about that at all. I think it's just kind of a little bit of, insurance, if you will, spiritual insurance.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to go do that. So you can get a mass for yourself for the hour of your death. So you don't know when, obviously, the hour of your death is. So it's just for the future.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that. There's going to be a lot of mass stipends coming in today.
Well, I'm going to need it.
No, but I mean, a lot of folks are going to be listening, run into the church, getting. Right. And folks, if you don't know that, because a lot of people come in to the parishes and they'll say, "How do we have masses said?" You just have to go to the front office of your parish and just simply ask them, and they usually pull out a book, and there's usually a stipend for it, and they'll write it all in. Small stipend, yeah,
small,
it's like.
$20 or something, $10, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a wonderful way, and you can have several masses all year long. You can even do them you can schedule them way out because they have books for years to come. So thank you, Carol, again for that wonderful suggestion. Now we got two that came out of that, Carol, yours and Jerry's. Okay, I just wanted to say something about EWTN Radio Classics because we know Mother Angelica passed and Father Benedict Rochelle passed, and both of them had such a healthy aspect of life and death, and they've taught us so much. And so you can catch some of the EWTN Radio Classics 24/7, the teaching and devotionals, all sorts of things with Mother Angelica, Father Benedict Rochelle, Patrick Madrid, and others. I mean, it's just fabulous, and it's a great way to tap in and just remind us of what we need to know just to get through this life and also to prepare for eternity. So you can find them online at EWTNradio.net and on the EWTN app.
All right. Back to your calls. Kim, you're going to be right after Steve. Steve is in Gaithersburg, Maryland. Thank you, Steve, for joining us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Welcome. Hi, Steve. Steve, you've been waiting a long time. I sure hope we have you there. Is Steve there? Maybe we can put Steve back on hold.
Maybe he walked away from the phone because he didn't get the Patience Award.
Well, we're going to go
come
to
back.
we'll get back to you, Steve. We'll check there in a minute. We're going to go to Kim, who is in Coleman, Alabama, and that's a very special place for me and Debbie. She's listening on Guadalupe Radio. Hi, Kim. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi. Thank you for having me. I
Sure.
really enjoy listening to your program.
Oh, thanks.
So I was calling because I have been on the receiving end of having both of my parents pass away suddenly and 8 years apart from one another. But my mother died at 53, and she had a sudden aneurysm, and that was in 2000. And even though it was a sudden death, she had prepared spiritually, and we had many graces that came from her death. So
I agree with the conversations prior to the importance of the spiritual preparations. And my mother had lost her mother 4 years prior to her death of cancer, and it had such an impact on her that a couple years after my mother's mother died, my mom felt prompted. She must have had some kind of intuition that she may have a sudden death, and she was going away on a trip, and she wrote down to myself, my father, my sister, and my cousin that was like a sister. She wrote a letter to us telling us that she was going away on a trip, and in case of a sudden death, she wanted to know how much each one of us meant to her. And it was like a last letter. And it was such an amazing grace when she was in the hospital, because we didn't know if she was going to live or die. And I was sent back home to try to get some rest, because I've been up to the hospital for over 24 hours. And it just came over me. I had a girlfriend with me, and I just looked at her and I said, Tricia, there's these letters. I have to find these letters. And I had no idea what I was talking about. I didn't know that she had written us letters. And I went to our family Bible. It's like the Holy Spirit guided me, and I opened up the Bible, and there were these envelopes with my name, my father's name, my sister's name, and my cousin's name. So I opened my letter, and it was just such an emotional, it was like she was right there with me, speaking the words into my heart. And the irony is every letter said in case of a sudden death, and she had ended up dying 2 years after of a sudden death. And so we were able to read the letters at her funeral, and it gave so much comfort. But for my father, it was so difficult because my father was the breadwinner, and my mother stayed at home, and my dad, we always teased and said my dad would make all the money. My mom was good at spending it all. And so when my mom died, my dad didn't even know really how to access the checking account. And he had to, just navigate through all that on top of all of the shock and emotional, distress. And so I wanted to just comment that because he died in 2008, and he had gone into the hospital with pneumonia, and the day that he died, he was supposed to be released from the hospital. They said he was getting better, and then he had a massive heart attack and died in the hospital. And I did have the grace of a priest being at my side during that time, praying the Divine Mercy Chaplet. So I'm a very big supporter of that. I just think there's come from that. But my father, because of what he had experienced with my mother, he had prepared everything for us. He had a file that had his last will and testament. He owned a business. He had it all written out. And it was a true act of charity on his part for us, for his children that were left behind. And to be on the receiving end of that was just a tremendous grace. And so, when people say that it's a morbid thing, to plan your funeral and all that, I look at it as the total opposite. I think it's a total act of charity to be completely outside of yourself, because it's all for the people that are left behind. And so I just wanted to share that. I have been on the receiving end of both. And there's so many graces come when the people, make those preparations for the rest of the family. It was a true gift to be on the receiving end of that.
Wow, Kim, your story it's incredible on so many levels. What you said about it's a true act of charity. I've never thought of it like that. And yes, you with your story, you just kind of summed up the whole show for us and kind of brought it all back and thought, you know what, this is the right thing to do if we love those ones that we're going to be leaving behind. But Kim, you shared so beautifully about your mom and dad. We need you to share one more thing, their first names, because we want to thank God that they're your parents, because you sound like you just are beaming with just such joyfulness and gratitude that you had this great mother and this great father for the time that you did. And I'll tell you what, it's only fair that we send up prayers to God saying, thank you, Lord, for letting Kim's parents do such wonderful work on this earth. So can you share their first names?
Yes, and thank you for that. That is part of my parents' legacy, and I share that with so many of my circle of influence that I didn't know growing up how blessed I was. I knew I had good parents, but I didn't realize, because I was so sheltered, that I was given so much because of my parents. My parents were equally very good, holy people, and they were both filled with charity. They were completely selfless in their lives of service, and even though they lived a short time compared to a lot of people, I think that their work was done, and they received their reward. And my mother's name was Nancy, and my father's name was David, and Nancy and David Clopton, and they left a tremendous legacy for us. And I'm about to actually go into the Shrine of the Blessed Sacrament and celebrate Mass and Thanksgiving for both of them.
Well, that's beautiful, Kim. And I don't know if you've heard, Debbie and I are going to be there, actually, at St. Bernard Abbey in Coleman. We're going to have our first Stand Tall retreat next February 9th through the 11th, and there will be information at jerryanddebbie.com. And if you are so inclined to look into that, we would love to meet you in person and have you as part of the retreat. So be watching for that. We'll be talking more about that as the program unfolds. In fact, tomorrow, Debbie, I think, is
open registration.
The official opening of open registration. Yeah. So, and that'll be at jerryanddebbie.com.
Yep, it'll be at jerryanddebbie.com. They can just click, go on the online. It goes right to St. Bernard's Abbey, and you can register online. So thank you again, Kim. Carol, and I think it's Morlena and Ruth and the others. We're not going to get to you. This is what happens with this show. We need a second hour, Jerry. Make it happen. But we can't take it away from Dr. Ray, because Dr. Ray's awesome.
I know. Well, yeah, and I want to thank Kim again, too. And just again, with regard to the retreat, folks, please consider joining us. We're calling them Stand Tall retreats. We don't want to stand with our chests stuck out like we're prideful. We want to stand tall, stand erect, let our faces not blush with shame. We are children of an almighty Heavenly Father, and a lot of us are walking around with a ball and chain that's kind of hindering our living the fullest life God has for us. And so Debbie and I have a passion just for gathering together with you and anybody who would like to join us, and we're going to share our hearts, our wounds, our traumas, our experiences, our joys, and try and lift one another up. So please, February 9th through 11th, we're going to visit Mother Angelica's final resting place at the shrine where Kim is right now, and it's just going to be a wonderful retreat. Full details will be at jerryanddebbie.com. And I know I'm hogging here at the end, Debbie, but I wanted to add just real quickly a thought for Kim, and that is, as we're talking about, preparing for death and all these final preparations, I love the fact that she mentioned not just the practical, concrete detail stuff, but her mother took the time, in a sense, to prepare for her death by letting everybody know what she felt, how she loved them. So I encourage all of you who are listening right now, say what you want to say when you have while you have time to say it, and don't wait until there is that grieving and someone's dying or something. Tell your loved ones you love them. Show them that you love them. And there's no better way, I think, to prepare for all of our deaths than to be good and kind and loving and respectful to one another. So
that's very true. Well said, Jerry. And that's why it's a good time for us to say how much we love the Take Two family, because you guys are awesome. Without you, there wouldn't be a Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We love you. Tomorrow we're talking about when you can't sleep, but you can pray. So I love this show tomorrow, Jerry, because it's all about prayer. This is just right up my alley. I love this.
And it's All Saints Day. We celebrate just all of our brothers and sisters in Christ who are in heaven, and then All Souls Day, and it's the month of the Holy Souls coming up. So you will be in a special way in our prayers all throughout this entire month of November.
So until tomorrow, we just wish you a beautiful and blessed day. See you real soon.